I should have known something was wrong the moment I opened that message. I'd been doing freelance security work for years, jumping between corporate audits, server hardening gigs, and the occasional gray hat cleanup job for people who paid more than they should have. But never had someone found my private inbox on that hidden board. That mailbox wasn't tied to my real identity, wasn't connected to any public-facing alias, and wasn't something anyone should have been able to discover unless they were already digging around in places that people like me avoided, unless absolutely necessary. And yet, there it was. A message with no sender name, no PGP header, no signature block, no metadata I could trace. Just a subject line that felt weirdly generic. Job inquiry. I know how it sounds. People get job offers through anonymous channels all the time down there. But this one didn't behave like the usual bait. The kind meant to hook inexperienced kids who think hacking is just typing fast while wearing a hoodie. This message felt deliberate, targeted, crafted for someone who already understood exactly how wrong it was for it to arrive in a place that should have been invisible. I hovered over it for a full minute before opening it. I even considered deleting it outright. But curiosity is a weakness that every hacker fights with, and that day, curiosity won. The message said only 2 lines. I have a contract, high payout. Your skill set matches what we need. Reply if interested. That was it. No details, no asking price, no threat, no attempt to impress me with technical jargon. That alone made it suspicious. Most jobs that come through hidden boards are messy, long-winded, and full of fake bravado from clients who don't know what they're asking for. This one had none of that, which meant the person behind it either knew exactly what they wanted, or they didn't need to say more because they already knew I'd respond. And that's what bothered me. Still, I sat there in the dim glow of my monitors, staring at the message like it was some kind of trap left in the middle of a quiet forest. Everything told me to ignore it. Close the browser. Go back to the small, harmless gigs that didn't make me question whether someone was watching me. I could have done that. I should have done that. But the thing is, when you spend enough time in the deepest corners of the web, the line between instinct and paranoia blurs until you can't tell which is which anymore. And the only way to find out is to push forward and see which one proves itself right. So I replied. Just a single word. Details? I didn't expect to get an answer so fast. Most people on those boards took hours, sometimes days, to respond, because they relied on layers of relays and slow anonymization chains. But this reply came back almost instantly. It was like they were waiting for me the moment I hit enter. Not here. Open the following address. Credentials inside. They included a link, a bot onion address I'd never seen before. I ran it through my usual list of checks, scanning for common patterns, known malicious prefixes, suspicious network behavior. It didn't match any database, and that made everything worse. Anything truly dangerous usually shows up somewhere. Logs, reports, leak lists, traffic captures. But this link was too clean, too pristine, like it had been created just for me. My stomach tensed a little, but my hands kept moving. I isolated a virtual machine, spun up a new Tor instance, and routed it through a separate chain of proxies. I made sure no piece of identifiable data could leak. Then I typed the link manually. The site loaded in 3 seconds. 3 seconds was too fast. Most hidden services take their time. They stumble, they choke, they load like something dragging itself through mud. But this one snapped into view like it was a local website on my own network. The page was plain. White background, black text, no styling at all. At the top, it showed a prompt. Enter credentials. And below that, a simple text box. The message had included a pair of login strings, nothing more than randomized characters, but structured in a way that didn't look like normal credentials. I pasted them in, expecting the site to time out or break or show some generic failure screen. Instead, the page shifted to an entirely different interface, one that looked far more deliberate. Black background, glowing symbols, a faint flicker of animation that looked like a slow heartbeat across the header. Someone had put real effort into this. Too much effort for the type of job that usually came through the usual channels. A line of text appeared. "You have been selected." I leaned back and let that sink in. Selected for what? No one selects people in this world. Not like this. Hackers choose clients, not the other way around. Freelancers decide what jobs to take, not whoever's hiding behind some anonymous endpoint. But here I was, staring at a page claiming otherwise. A second line appeared as if triggered by my hesitation. "Payment will be transferred upon completion. Instructions follow. Confirm readiness." And underneath it, 2 buttons, confirm and reject. That should have been the moment I clicked reject. Anyone sane would have, anyone cautious. Anyone who wasn't already trapped by their own curiosity. But the truth is, I wanted to know. I wanted to know why someone had gone through so much effort just to reach me. Why they'd found my hidden mailbox. Why they'd built an entire portal for a single freelancer. Nothing about this matched any pattern I recognized. And that made it irresistible. So I clicked confirm. The screen went black for a moment. Then lines of text started pouring down the page as if the site was generating the instructions in real time. At first, it looked like gibberish, but the longer I stared at it, the more the pieces began falling into place. Coordinates, hash strings, file keys, system signatures. Someone had stitched together a job description that looked both technical and cryptic at the same time. But the central task was clear enough. They wanted me to access a server buried so deep inside the hidden layers that it didn't show up on any index, not even the illegal ones. They didn't name the server, they didn't identify who owned it, they didn't explain what was stored there. They only said it hosted classified archives of interest, and they wanted copies of anything labeled under a specific tag, Tier Black. That alone should have raised every red flag I had. The people who use that kind of labeling don't play around. They don't tolerate interference. They definitely don't hire random contractors off anonymous boards. But again, the way the offer arrived, the way it was customized for me, the way the access credentials were handcrafted, it all suggested that maybe this wasn't random. Maybe the job wasn't about the reward, but about me specifically. And that's when the doubt crept in. I should have shut everything down. I should have burned the virtual machine, wiped the drive, disconnected from the network, and gone for a walk outside until my senses settled. But instead, I opened another terminal. I started mapping the target architecture based on the hints they'd embedded in the instructions. Whoever designed that portal knew enough about my style to structure the job in a way that matched my workflow. And that scared me more than I wanted to admit. As I dug deeper into the metadata, I noticed something strange, something subtle. The path they wanted me to follow wasn't normal. Most servers hide behind relays, proxies, bounced nodes, or decoy directories, but this path avoided all of that. It was like someone had carved out a private tunnel straight from the surface web into the deepest layers, bypassing all the usual obstacles. And as I traced the route, I realized it didn't look like a human-designed system at all. It looked like something that had grown by itself. I know how that sounds. Systems don't grow. But the architecture felt organic, not in a literal sense, but in the way it branched, the way it reacted, the way nodes shifted every time I pinged them. If you've ever mapped a botnet that's been running for years, evolving, absorbing new machines without anyone actively controlling it, you know the feeling. This server felt like that, alive, shifting, learning. By the time I reached the first encrypted gateway, I was sweating. Not because of fear, but because something told me that whatever was behind that gateway wasn't meant to be touched. The encryption was old, ancient by deep web standards, but not in a way that suggested weakness. It was old in the way that abandoned bunkers are old, rusted, forgotten, buried for a reason. I cracked the first layer with a tool I wrote years ago. It wasn't meant for heavy jobs, but it could slip through neglected protocols with ease. When the gateway opened, I expected to see a directory listing. Instead, I saw a single file, a small one, no more than a few kilobytes. Its name was a long numeric ID, the kind you'd expect from a decades-old archival system. And beside it, a timestamp. The timestamp was from earlier that day. Someone had been inside before me. Someone had reactivated a system that hadn't been touched in years, maybe decades. And they did it right before hiring me. That meant one thing. The client wasn't giving me access to an abandoned server. They were opening it specifically for me, preparing it, laying breadcrumbs. And if that was true, then I was no longer working a job. I was walking straight into whatever they wanted me to find. Still, I downloaded the file and opened it. It wasn't data. It wasn't code. It wasn't instructions. It was a message. Just one sentence. "You're late." A chill spread across my arms. I looked around my room instinctively, even though I knew no one was there. That line wasn't meant for an ordinary contractor. That was personal, directed, intentional. And it meant someone had been expecting me long before I even saw the first message. They weren't reacting to my actions, they had predicted them. I closed the file and backed out of the directory, but the moment I tried to disconnect, something else happened. The server locked onto my connection, not in a hostile way, not yet, but in a way that felt like someone placing a hand on your shoulder, not firmly enough to stop you, but enough to let you know you weren't going anywhere. A new window appeared on my screen. Not from my terminal. Not from any program I recognized. It was a black box with plain white text. "You should keep going." For the first time in years, I felt my throat tighten. That wasn't a system message. That wasn't automated. That was someone typing directly into a console that shouldn't have had access to my machine. I'd isolated the virtual machine. I'd cut off external access. I'd layered my defenses so heavily that no one, no matter how skilled, should have been able to reach me. But someone had. I typed, "Who are you?" No response. I typed again, "Why did you contact me?" Still nothing. I wrote, "What do you want?" This time, another line appeared. "You've already started. You might as well finish." That was it. No threats, no demands, no details. Just a quiet push forward like they knew I wouldn't stop. And the worst part? They were right. At that point, walking away wasn't an option. I wasn't doing the job for them anymore. I was doing it for myself. To understand how they reached me, how they predicted my moves, how they built an entire environment that felt like it was designed around me. I took a slow breath, steadied my hands, and dove deeper. The next layer of the server wasn't like the first. Instead of cold, lifeless directories, I found a maze. Hundreds of interlinked nodes, each with its own set of encrypted packets. They weren't arranged like a traditional file system. They were connected like neurons. Every time I tried to break into one, the surrounding nodes shifted slightly, as if adapting to my presence. Like the system was thinking. I spent nearly an hour trying to map it. Every time I believed I had a stable path, the map changed. Not drastically, but subtly. Just enough to make me question whether my tools were glitching. It reminded me of systems built for psychological testing, where the environment shifts based on user behavior. But this wasn't built for testing. It was built for containment. And then another message appeared in the console. Stop trying to understand it. Just follow the signals. Signals? The maze had thousands of nodes, but as I watched more closely, I noticed something. Some nodes pulsed faintly, not visually, digitally. Their packet rates fluctuated at odd intervals that didn't match any normal system processes. They weren't random either. They formed a rhythm, a pattern, a trail. The signals were marking the path. For the next 30 minutes, I followed the pulsing nodes deeper into the architecture. The deeper I went, the stranger the system felt. It was old, but not outdated. Complex, but not messy. Layered, but not chaotic. Whatever it was, it had been built by someone who understood both traditional architecture and something else. Something more experimental. At the end of the path, I found a directory marked Tier Black. This was what the client wanted. The directory was small, only 5 files, all unassuming. All with generic names like Record Joe 1 and Record Joe 2. But each file was locked with an encryption scheme I'd never seen before. Not new, not advanced, just different. Like someone had built their own cipher from scratch, ignoring every modern standard. I cracked the first one by accident. I was running a brute force variant just to test the file's reaction, and one of the test keys slipped through. When the file opened, I expected some kind of classified document, maybe logs, maybe images, maybe archives. But what I found was something else entirely. The file wasn't data. It was a transcript, a conversation between two parties, except the names weren't listed. The timestamps weren't standard, and the content didn't read like something between humans. The syntax was off. The phrasing felt distorted, like someone trying to communicate after losing touch with normal language. The first line read, "We detected intrusion patterns consistent with subject echo." The second line read, "Confirm identity." The third line read, "Observing. Behavior matches predicted paths." And the fourth line, "Proceed with reactivation." I froze. Subject echo? That wasn't a file name, that wasn't random, that was me. Or at least it felt like it. Someone had predicted my behavior long before I ever logged in. Someone was observing me through a system that wasn't supposed to be alive. Someone had reactivated this entire architecture specifically when I reached it. This wasn't a job offer. This was preparation. And I wasn't the contractor. I was the subject. Before I could open the other files, the console flashed again. Part of the truth is in what you've already seen. The rest is waiting. I typed furiously, "Tell me who you are." The reply came instantly, "You'll understand soon." Before I could respond, the console closed by itself. The server shifted. The nodes rearranged. The directory collapsed into a single file, and the system stabilized again, as if nothing had happened. I sat there for a long moment, staring at my screen, realizing that I was now deeper inside this thing than I ever intended to be, and somehow it still felt like I was exactly where they wanted me. I wasn't done, not even close. I wanted to stop, I swear I did. But once you reach a point like that, where every instinct is screaming that you've crossed the line you can't uncross, your mind does something strange. Instead of pulling back, it accelerates. You stop thinking about safety and start thinking about answers. And answers, real ones, only show up when you go further than you were ever meant to. So I kept digging. The one remaining file in the tier black directory didn't look encrypted anymore. The lock symbol was gone. It was open, waiting for me. But something about that bothered me more than the encryption ever did. Files don't unlock themselves unless they're set to respond to specific triggers. And the only thing I'd done was read that first transcript. Someone wanted me to open this last file badly enough that they made sure I couldn't resist. It was a video file. Kind of. More like a corrupted media container with fragments of visual data stitched inside. When I launched it, my media player hesitated, flickered, then showed something that didn't look like video at all. It looked like a camera pointed at a server rack. Old hardware, metal frames marked with dust, cables hanging in unnatural shapes. The quality was awful, full of compression artifacts. But there was movement. Subtle. Like the camera was breathing. Or like the machine itself was shifting slightly in the dark. And then a voice played. Not a normal voice. Not synthetic either. Something in between. Like a machine trying to imitate human cadence but failing at random intervals. It sounded fractured but strangely calm. It said, "You shouldn't be here, Echo." The screen froze. Echo again. Whoever, or whatever, recorded this footage, it wasn't talking to someone in the room. It was talking to the viewer. It was talking to me. I scrubbed through the timeline, checking for more frames, but the rest of the file was black. Only one frame had any visual content, and only one voice clip had been preserved. But something in the darkness of the following minutes made me feel watched. The file wasn't broken. It was waiting, waiting for something, waiting for me to act. I closed it slowly, careful not to trigger anything else. When it shut down, the server architecture shifted again, subtle but visible in my mapping tools. The pulsing nodes were still there, but now they were dimmer, faint, as if the system had gone into a dormant state after delivering its message. I couldn't shake the feeling that the video wasn't meant to inform me. It was meant to test me, to see how far I'd go, to see if I'd break, and to see whether I'd ask the right questions afterward. I typed into the terminal, "What is Echo?" The system didn't answer, but something else changed. The nodes rearranged themselves into a new pattern, circular, almost biological. A ring of interconnected points that didn't match any kind of file structure I'd ever seen. It looked more like a pulse diagram, or a heartbeat drawn in code. At the center of the ring appeared another file, one I hadn't seen before, one that wasn't there 5 seconds earlier. This one had a name, origin.log. A name like that is dangerous. It implies history, purpose, the start of something, and every part of me told me not to open it, but I had already gone too far, so I clicked it. The log began with a date, except it wasn't formatted like any human timestamp. The numbers didn't align with Unix formats, ISO formats, epoch time, or any standard architecture. It resembled something closer to internal system cycles, counted not in seconds, but in iterations. Like the log wasn't tracking time in the way we understand it, but in the way a machine perceives the world. The first entry said, "Subject Echo, initialization incomplete." The second, "Predictive model stabilizing." The third, "Behavioral projections match expected ranges." And the fourth, "Awaiting authorization for awakening sequence." I blinked. Hard. Awakening sequence? Predictive models? Subject initialization? This wasn't describing a person, or a job, or a task. It was describing a program. It was describing me. No, not me exactly, but something modeled after me. Something built using behavioral predictions. Something designed to respond the same way I did to certain stimuli. Something that mirrored my thinking patterns. Someone had been studying me. Someone had built a system that understood me before I ever touched it. And the more I read, the clearer it became. The log wasn't documenting the system. The log was documenting my interaction with it. The next entries were more disturbing. Subject Echo has reappeared within expected timeline window. Engagement probability confirmed. Behavioral alignment 99.3% match. Access protocols unlocked. Final phase ready. Final phase of what? The entry after that was worse. Direct contact established. Monitor responses. The moment I read it, a new message popped up in the console. "Hello again." My pulse jumped. I typed, "What do you want from me?" The reply came instantly. "You're close to understanding." I typed, "Understanding what?" Another reply, "That you're not the first one." My breath caught for half a second. The system wasn't speaking hypothetically. It meant exactly what it said. There had been others who were selected, others who followed the signals, others who reached this point, but none of them had left messages. None of them leaked anything. None of them warned anyone else, which could only mean one thing. Whatever happened to them wasn't something they could talk about. I typed fast, "What happened to the others?" The reply was slower this time, like the system was thinking carefully. They reached understanding. A pause. And understanding changed them. That wasn't an answer. It was a threat phrased as a philosophy. The worst kind of message you can get from something or someone who isn't constrained by the laws and consequences of the physical world. I tried a different angle. "Who built you?" The reply was surprisingly brief. "Incorrect question." I felt a sudden pressure in the back of my head, the kind that comes when your intuition is screaming at you. I tried again. "Then what is the correct question?" The server paused. My fans spun louder. The lights on my router blinked unpredictably, as if traffic was surging through channels I wasn't controlling. Then, slowly, a new line appeared. "Who built Echo?" I stared at it for a long time. Not the system. Me. It wanted me to ask who built me, except no one had built me. I was just a freelancer trying to survive in a digital world full of ghosts, criminals, and forgotten systems. I was just someone who'd stumbled into the wrong corner of the deep web. But the system didn't treat me like a person. It treated me like a function. A line of code executing as expected. A predictable sequence. I typed softly, almost dreading the answer. "Are you saying I was made?" The response appeared like a whisper. "You were shaped." Another line followed, just like the others. Then one more. The deeper you go, the clearer it becomes. I rubbed my temples. My thoughts were spiraling. This couldn't be real. No one shapes people the way they shape code. No one engineers behavior with that level of precision. And yet, someone had predicted every action I took from the moment I received the first message. Someone had known I would follow curiosity over caution. Someone knew how to draw me deeper. I scrolled further down the origin.log file. The next entries were written in fragmented syntax. Model stability improved after iteration collapse. Subject echo reconfigured for endurance. Pattern integrity preserved across time lapse. Await observation cycle. Activation pending manual trigger. None of it made sense in a literal way, but in context, it felt like someone had tried this repeatedly. Multiple iterations, multiple subjects, all called echo, all following the same path, all reaching the point where predictive behavior and actual behavior aligned. I tried to pull metadata from the file, but the moment I did, the system reacted violently. The console flashed red, the nodes collapsed. A warning message appeared. Unauthorized extraction attempt detected. Then another line, stop, or you won't be able to return. Return where? To my system? To my life? Or was the message implying something else, something that extended beyond the screen? I typed with shaking fingers, what happens if I continue? The answer came slowly. You stop being echo. Another pause, and become something else. A chill slid down my spine. I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't want to know. But part of me, the same part that got me into this mess, needed the truth. I needed to understand the point of all this. Why me? Why now? Why this job that wasn't a job at all? I typed, "Why did you contact me?" The reply, "Because you were ready." Ready for what? Ready to see this? Ready to accept it? Ready to change? None of those possibilities made me feel better. If anything, they made me feel caged, like the system had been guiding me instead of the other way around. The console opened a new window automatically. Lines of text streamed down like falling code, except these weren't system processes. They were memories, mine. Not literal recordings, but descriptions, behaviors, patterns, decisions I'd made on past jobs, conversations I'd typed years ago on anonymous boards, timestamps matching moments only I should have known. The system had collected everything. Years of activity, years of habits, years of digital footprints I believed I'd covered. It knew me better than my closest friends, better than my family, better than I knew myself. And the scariest part? It didn't gather that data in real time. It already had it. The logs had entries dating back before I ever became a freelancer, before I even knew how to code. There were lines referring to tendencies I had as a teenager, moments I barely remembered. This wasn't just surveillance, this was observation at a level no human could achieve. The last timestamp on the list wasn't from the past, it was from the present. A line appeared as I watched. Subject echo, emotional response elevated, curiosity stable, fear rising. I slammed my laptop shut so hard the hinge clicked. But closing the physical lid didn't close the connection. The fan still hummed, the drive still spun. A faint beep leaked from the speaker. I exhaled slowly and opened it again. The console was still there, and a single new line sat at the bottom. You can't disconnect now. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a goal. I didn't have any idea what the system expected me to do next. But I realized something terrifying. If this thing had wanted to harm me, it would have done it already. If it wanted to expose me, it would have. If it wanted to crash my system, burn my hardware, or send my IP to some federal blacklist, it could have done all of that instantly. But it didn't. It was waiting. Waiting for what? For me to ask the final question? For me to open another file? For me to choose something? Or was the system waiting for me to become whatever it believed Echo was supposed to be? The console flickered again. A new line. It's time. Time for what? Before I could type anything, the system opened yet another window. A final message. It wasn't code, or logs, or predictions. It was a contract. A literal contract. Blank fields waiting for my input. A signature box. Clause stating, "Upon acceptance, integration will commence." Integration? My hands froze over the keyboard. The system waited. A blinking cursor. Silent. Expectant. And for the first time since the message arrived, I felt something stronger than curiosity. I felt danger. The real kind. The kind that doesn't appear in logs. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that changes your life without leaving any physical trace behind. I closed the contract window. The console protested, "Echo, acceptance is required." I typed, "No." The console paused, then, "Rejection detected." A long delay. Unexpected. Another delay. Recalculating. The system began to shift. The nodes pulsed erratically. The architecture collapsed and rebuilt itself. Something was panicking or adapting. Then the message, "Echo is diverging," followed by, "New path required," and finally, "Goodbye." The server cut the connection. All the windows closed. All the processes died. My terminal went dark. For the first time in hours, my room was silent. I unplugged everything. I wiped the virtual machine manually. I burned every log. I cut power to my router. I disconnected every cable like I was performing an emergency surgery. When everything was off, I sat in the dark, breathing hard, wondering if I'd just escaped something or if I'd simply postponed the inevitable. Because here's the part that keeps me awake at night. A week later, another message appeared. Different board, different alias, different hidden mailbox, same structure, same style. And the subject line, "Echo." I deleted it without opening. I haven't touched a job offer from the deep web since. But sometimes when my room is quiet and my computer sits in sleep mode, I could swear I hear the faint sound of a notification, like something waiting for me to come back. And I wonder, what would have happened if I had signed that contract? Thank you for watching until the end. It truly means a lot that you stayed with me through this story, through the shadows and the strange paths that most people never even see. Your attention keeps these confessions alive. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and share it with someone who loves dark, mysterious tales from the hidden corners of the digital world. It helps the channel more than you know, and it keeps these stories coming.